Today, myself, Joey Only, Caribbean Weather Dude, your local weather forecaster, wants to talk to you about a false dichotomy someone brought up within Weather Watcher group that I found a little bit insulting, honestly. And let's talk about it. What do I mean by false dichotomy? Now, a false dichotomy is like a false sense of like it's either this or that, whereas in reality, sometimes two things can be true. That just because one thing is true doesn't mean the other thing is true. Just because one thing is true, just because one thing is untrue doesn't mean the other thing is not untrue as well, right? So false dichotomy, it's like you're creating a division there that doesn't actually exist. So the false dichotomy I'm speaking of goes like this. Someone said, I don't believe in the weatherman. I only believe in our indigenous traditional sources of knowledge. And that's a false dichotomy. It's not one or the other. It's not just because you believe in traditional knowledge doesn't mean you can't believe in the weatherman. And just because you believe in the weatherman doesn't mean you can't believe in traditional knowledge. Let's consider, for example, trees that are changing color in the Caribbean right now. That's not the case here in Wells. Our poplars are doing quite well. Mountain trees tend to be hardier is part of it. And we also have a great deal more humidity every night here. So our trees aren't so stressed here in Wells up in the mountains. But when you go into Quesnel, you notice the trees are quite stressed this year. There's signs in the trees that something's a little off right now. We had the Stellar Jays show up several weeks early back to town this year. Interesting. You can take a number of these things, animal behavior that's going on, and consider like what the meaning of it is. Now these are all great examples of nature telling us things, and these are things that people would point to and say, well, traditional knowledge says that when this is happening it means this. Now does that mean that science and traditional knowledge are going to find two separate things? No, we're looking at the upper level low pattern. We're looking at the possibility of La Nina again this winter, and the scientific consensus more and more is reaching the idea that the Pacific Northwest may be in for a pretty good winter. There's a high reasonable chance of that. Now, the same data we're looking at to come up with that same information has practical effects on Earth, which you see in the trees and the animal behaviors and the plants and this, that, and the other. Is one form of knowledge superseding the other? No. Can you look at one set of knowledge and pretend that the other doesn't matter? No. Am I a weatherman? Yes. Do I pay attention to those signs, local signs? Yes. Those are important things that I consider. And there's always been part of my forecasting to look at local conditions that are going on and make some judgments based on and that's sometimes even just looking at the clouds. I'm like, well, forecast says this. I'm looking at the sky and I don't see it. And sometimes I'm right. Most often when that happens, right? I don't really see that playing out. Do I see the possibility of a good winter this winter? Yeah, I see that scientifically. I see the signs in the stress on the plants and wildlife that's going on. They're not two separate sources of knowledge. They are compatible. The whole point of science is observation. So the more observation, the better. The more kinds of observation, the better. That's why you like me as your weatherman, because I am not just some guy sitting there in an office down in Vancouver on the coast guessing at what's going to go on up here based on the facts and data and numbers. That I also integrate a local understanding, historic understanding. I'm watching the plants and animals, the patterns from a local perspective, from a traditional knowledge gathering perspective, right? The two aren't in conflict with each other. So let's not pretend they are. Let's not make it science versus indigenous knowledge. It's not true. I like what AI says here. Indigenous knowledge is holistic, place-specific, deeply connected to ancestral relationships with the environment, passed down through generations via stories, ceremonies, and lived experiences. Western science is characterized by reductionist, universalizing approach using systemic and systematic experimentation and objective facts to discover universal laws. However, these systems are increasingly being integrated to achieve more comprehensive and effective solution to environmental challenges. That's the right answer. Joey Only Caribou Weather Dude YouTube channel. Hit like, share, subscribe up here in the Caribou Mountains. Doing my best to be your weatherman to help arm you and prepare you for all the different kinds of things that are going to happen in the year. And yes, so far my bet is on a solid winter coming into the Caribou, but with it being 32 degrees in Wells on the 25th of August. Unbelievably hot. All bets are off right now, at least. We will wait to see some larger weather changes before we give a final, this is what I think is going to happen this winter. Nonetheless, right now, I am leaning that way too. I'm leaning that way. I think most of the science community is. And I think a lot of local people, that's the buzz. People are talking locally. I know native people are talking. That's the buzz. We think there's going to be a good winter this year. I think there's a high chance of it. All right. Well, we'll find out soon enough. We'll talk to you soon, everybody. Thanks for watching. Joey Only Caribou Weather Dude YouTube channel. Bye now. Bye for now.